Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and rotation is the biggest thing happening in the Pokemon TCG coming up. It is accompanied essentially by the new expansion Journey Together. But if you're not familiar with what rotation is, it's something that happens every year, generally at like the first main set of the year around that time, and cards are going to be rotated out. I mean, you cannot play them in the standard format, which is the main format that essentially everyone plays in the Pokemon TCG. And that format, you have the past few years of cards. So the cards printed in, let me find a card, printed in 2022 essentially are rotating out, specifically the ones with the regulation mark H. There are some minor nuances to this. I guess the rule is if a card was printed, the cards that will be legal in the format are the ones printed with the G, H, or I regulation mark, or I guess G and later. So that is cards. It's the Scotland Violet cards. Those are the ones you can play. If there's a trainer card reprinted, for example, most of these trainers here are reprinted, like Ultra Ball, for example. It's not rotating. So this you can play because it was printed in Scarlet and Violet, and I guess also Paldean Fates with the regulation mark G, though it theoretically will rotate later. We'll see whether or not that actually happens. But we're not talking about these cards because they're not rotating. And then I'm not going to be going over every card rotating. Obviously, there's a lot. It's a whole year's worth of cards here. It says 814 cards have the regulation mark F. Again, not all these are rotating, but almost all these are rotating. And lots of these are really boring, and some aren't super interesting. Like Leafeon V-Star is, and like Charizard V-Star, they're okay. Um, okay at best. They're not super good, but I'm not going to be talking about them. I'm going to talk about the ones that are played the most and then I think are interesting, which is really a look at pretty much all the ones that I think are meaningful. The most notable ones I'm not covering are going to be the like rogue attackers that are fun, maybe something like Zamazenta. Um, Not really going to be diving into the Reggies that much, or you got weird stuff like this Mismagius or like this Dedenne. They're not super. They're kind of interesting. They're pretty bad to at best okay. But anyways, first we're going to be talking about the support Pokemon. There's a bunch here, and I have them grouped into tiers here. The tiers are not ordered at all, but we have the top tier. We have the top tier split into two different categories. We have the huge losses, which I have as in Manaphy, Double Turbo Energy, Lost Vacuum, and Force Seal Stone. Manaphy is your bench protection. This is obviously, these are all rotating cards. This is rotating. However, in the second main set of the year, it's Heatwave Arena in Japan. I think it's Destined Rivals internationally. We'll be getting a Shaman, which is more or less a replacement for Manaphy. So, just keep that in mind. Then you're losing Double Turbo Energy, which is by far the best special energy in the game right now. There's some other ones that are fine, but this one is something that really is a part of a bunch of different decks. And in fact, I'd say like this top Double Turbo is a massive loss. It might be the biggest loss with rotation. It really seriously impacts something like say Trapco CX. You can play it, but it's pretty different. Cloth as well. Cloth is not really playable. I don't think after Double Turbo Energy is rotating. It's played in Lugia as well, but Lugia is rotating. Then again, these are the support cards. Though some are more important to decks than and others are more like general across different decks. But then you have Lost Vacuum. Lost Vacuum is a card that is used to remove tools and stadiums. We do have the best replacement, I guess I'd say, is Jamming Tower. I think that's a decent replacement, although it's not an item. So it's not Arven searchable, which is pretty meaningful. Speaking of Arven searchability, the best tool in the game, which is like by far the best tool, is Force Seal Stone. That is rotating. That's the other one of the really big losses. Decks that play it, I don't know if I'd quite say they rely on it. Like it's a pretty important card to those decks. But when you look at them as well, like Charizard, Miraidon, there's a bunch of decks. Um, they're going to be worse without this card, but this card isn't. I mean, it's not as important as Charizard is in Charizard. So still very very important losses for a Steel Stone once per game. Just search for any card. Um, it's like computer search. Computer searches and was an ace spec previously that was regarded as the best ace spec. I don't know really how it compares to Prime Catcher, to be honest, but the old ace specs, it was like the best ace spec, kind of like Prime Catchers now. So definitely a pretty big loss here. And then we have the cards that make up top decks that are the support Pokemon for them. Lugia Archeops, obviously a good deck. It's been a good deck since it's been in Standard, and it's a card that like they're kind of attackers, right? Especially like Lugia is kind of an attacker, but I don't have it as an attacker here. It's not going to be on the attacker tier list. And it's very good, right? You have the special energies. We are losing some. We're losing double term energy. We're also losing gift energy, which I'll mention later. Then we're losing Colossus Experiment, Comfy, and Mirage Key. Hopefully, I'm not forgetting cards. There are attackers within the Lost Zone deck, which will be on the other list. But yeah, Lost Zone's not a truly top deck right now, but I think it's still pretty solid. And obviously, it was very good for a long time. I don't know. I guess Lugia was probably better when it was in standard throughout the course of the times in standard, but it's not by that much. So two very very good decks. We're losing them. Is this going to completely like change the metagame and uproot it? No, I mean a lot of the decks that are in the game right now. They are, you got Dragapult, Gardevoir, which we'll talk about in a minute, Archaludon, Gholdengo, Charizard, Miraidon, Cloth, Raging Bolt. So these decks are all, they are all Pokemon that are, not rotating. These some have rotating pieces, some have really important rotating pieces, some have minor rotating pieces. But regardless, these decks though, you have, talk about Regidrago, you got Lugia, you got Lost Zone, you have Snorlax, and these are good decks, but it's certainly less than half the metagame. I'd say like a third, a quarter, something like that. Might be less. I don't know the numbers. But then we have some other strong support pieces. These are really good as well. If you put them in the top tier, that's fine. Rainy Quinge is also an attacker, so we'll talk about that in a moment or a little later. But that's a good draw Pokemon. Definitely the best Radiant. Then you have Lumineon V and Rotom V. They're both V's 4/4 Seal Stone, which is important. But then they have strong uses elsewhere. Rotom V's good for drawing you some cards and good in the early game. They're like Clef is kind of a replacement for that one. Then you have Lumineon V. There's not really a replacement for that. It's a little awkward with Nest Ball compared to when it had Quick Ball. So if you have better ball search options, it would be even better, or would have been even better. Lumineon V though is still really good for just getting your supporter each turn. Yeah, and there's not like a super clear replacement. I'm not a massive fan of Lumineon V, to be honest. I just don't find myself using it that much. And then Hisuian Heavy Ball. Hisuian Heavy Ball gets stuff out of your prizes. There's a new card. I don't know the name. I think it's like Exchange Ticket, but that's just a translation. And it kind of gets stuff out of your prizes. But Hisuian Heavy Ball gets basic out of your prizes. It's almost like a search option. It's a really strong card. And there isn't a great replacement for that. So you need to be careful if you're playing these basic box style decks to honestly, you're not really going to change what you do. You just need to hope that you don't get unlucky. That's not very good advice, is it? But it's the advice I have. So be lucky or don't be unlucky. I don't know. It's not going to change deck building that much, but it will affect some games. Then we have the cards I have in the good tier. Some of these aren't super great right now, but Barrel, I'll actually talk about the other engines as well. I mean, they're all like support Pokemon, but you have Kirlia and Liepard as well. They're like similar. They're a little weaker in my opinion. And we're also getting those replaced by Zoroark EX. And Zoroark EX is a 2-prizer, so that's worse. And it does have 2 retreat. There's a way to get it out of the active with the Stadium Ends Castle, and of course Ends. Zoroark EX is an attacking option as well. It's its own deck. It's a card that's been talked about a bunch. But you have a Barrel, which is I think the best engine, especially with Skwovet, because you don't need like a bunch of barrels. First, you probably want a bunch of colors and a bunch of Liepards. We do have Dracloak as well. Dracloak's an okay engine. It's not amazing, but I think it's okay. We're seeing it being used some in Japan. Then and so those are meaningful losses, not necessarily played a ton right now. Curler's obviously really meaningful for Gardevoir. Gardevoir's not bad post rotation. It's okay. Gardevoir EX itself, its ability is really, really strong. And the attackers are not rotating, so I don't know if any of them are. None that I can think of off the top of my head that are like super strong. And so you have, most of that stuff staying there. But losing Curly is definitely an annoyance. You'll probably just play without a particular engine. You're also losing Raining Finge as well, which is quite good there, which is kind of like a Raining Finge is not as important as Curlia, but not Emi either. It's definitely a bit of an issue. So lots of decks though obviously play engines that are separate from their main Pokemon. The only one that does, the only two I guess that play engines part of their evolution line are Gardevoir with Curlia and Dragapult with Dracloak. So you are losing the Curlia there, but whatever. Then we have Canceling Cologne here, which is it's a card that's good for certain things. It's somewhat niche, but it's pretty good. And then we have Radiant Alakazam. By the way, the tiers are in tier order. These tier names are kind of to give an idea of what these cards are. But a tier, like you could say, like, oh, right, Canceling Clone's niche, but it's in this tier. Then we have Radiant Alakazam, which I guess is also niche, but is pretty good. It's good in Dragapult. I probably would have put it lower if not for that, but I have it here. Then we have some stadiums in Collapse Stadium and Lost City. Honestly, I don't really use these that much. I think they're pretty mediocre. I think Lost City has theoretically some really high value. Actually, some of it's tied with Canceling Clone, or tied to Canceling Clone. And then you have Collapse Stadium, to shrink down your bench or your opponent's bench or whatever you're trying to do. It can allow you to get some Pokemon off the board. It's good. Then you have Tracking Shoes. Again, this is not super interesting. A lot of these cards aren't super interesting to talk about, but it's a pretty good card. Part of the Turbo package. I realized I forgot a card. I forgot Pokestop. I don't know how I forgot Pokestop, but Pokestop is also rotating. That's a pretty big loss. This card is also F Regulation Mark, of course. That would go in the I don't know. It would go in strong, I think. So I don't know how I forgot that one. Pokestop and Trekking Shoes are like a big part of the Turbo engine, as well as Radiant Greninja. Pokestop's played in some different decks. I associate a lot with the Raging Bull. Seeding Goldango. Goldango is fine post rotation. There's a lot of different things going on with Goldango, but it's still very good. It's arguably better. I'm not the biggest Goldango fan. I personally prefer Raging Bull over Goldango, especially post rotation. I do. Right now, I kind of go either way. But yeah, the basic somewhat like Turbo package, Trekking Shoes, Pokestop, things like that are leaving the game. You could say Forest Seal Stone's part of that as well. I mean, it's a pretty fast. It goes in a lot of fast decks. And slow. It's really good. Then we have Gift Energy. I mentioned it's a special energy. Unless you draw some cards, I think it's pretty good, but it's not played that much outside of Lugia. So it doesn't really matter because Lugia's rotating. Roxanne's a pretty strong supporter. It's a little situational, but that's really good. We have Iono as well, which is somewhat similar and obviously still very good. And decks playing Roxanne. Iono is playing for Iono. You could just toss four of those in, and it's fine. Probably. And then you have Irida rotating. I don't think Irida's the biggest loss. It hurts Chien-Pao. It hurts, I don't know, like Goldango plays it some. Lots of weird decks play Irida. It's played in. Chien-Pao does not play that much. The Palkia could go in this tier list as well. I don't have it in the support one, but you could include it there. Yeah, just like different things. Most of these are not without water based. But yeah, it's like a good card, it's a good supporter. But it's not one that's gonna be like this really huge impact. Water is okay right now. A lot of the best water Pokemon are like Manaphy, Lumineon, V, Radiant Greninja, which are really good. But I don't know, they're not really thought of as, or to me, like the top Pokemon like Charizard DX, Dragapult EX, things like that. So it's a little different. Then we have Lance. I don't think Lance is particularly good. It saw a lot of play recently. It's good for Dragapult because you just have a lot of Dragon Pokemon. Search a lot of Dragon Pokemon. It's a good card, I guess. I don't know. A lot of these cards aren't super interesting. I mentioned Curlia and Liepard. We got Radiant Serena, which is okay. The Switch card's actually, like, it's pretty highly played and it's kind of good, but you have regular Switch and you have Latias EX. I don't think it's a particularly big loss, like, at all. It does have some meaningful situations with, like, Dragapult, which has spread. So healing 30 on a bench Pokemon has some serious use cases, I guess. It's not super good. I mean, it's actually pretty good, but it's like not that much better than Switch, so that's fine. Featherball, same thing. I think Ultra Ball is better than Featherball. A lot of decks that play Featherball don't necessarily play for Ultra Ball. I don't think it's super strong. It's okay though. It has some decent uses. It's mostly used for Pidgeot. Dark Patch is really good within Darkness decks, but whatever. Darkness isn't super strong. Darkness is really good, but the main one is Charizard EX, which doesn't use this. But then you have Roaring Moon EX, which like kind of wants to send some other cards. It's not, a meaningless loss. There's a bunch of type specific ones. Grant's actually not exactly type specific, but it's good. Zapdos is also, I guess, type specific. It is. It's good in Miraidon. I'm not a big Miraidon fan. I mean, I think it's fine. But Miraidon's pretty bad post rotation. You're losing. Oh, I completely forgot Raichu V. I was gonna include it, and I was like, oh, well, it's not as good as Raichu V. I guess it ended up being left off. Probably belongs in like the very niche category. It's probably a tier below Raichu. Raiku's a solid, or no, it's like in this. Wait, no, I think I did include it. It's an attacker. I don't know what I'm saying. Raikou V though as an attacking or as a support option is important as a target for Force Seal Stone, and also because it has its draw ability. They're not absolutely insane, but they do add to the deck, and they're somewhat meaningful, more meaningful in my opinion than Entei V. Um, and so those are like deck specific things. Again, Grant's like different. Grant's just such a weird card. Then there is Thorin, which is cool, a really fun card. I played mostly Control, but it is playing some other things. You have Cynthia's Ambition, which is a draw supporter, pretty underrated in my opinion. Though it's not amazing. It's kind of like Hassle as well. I think Hassle's probably actually a little better than it, but it's not a bad supporter. We have Capturing Aroma. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about Capturing Aroma, to be honest. It's fine. It's kind of weird. It's not the strongest card, but it's okay. It's like a tier two item, which tier two items are usually pretty bad. But this one's easy to play. And then a little bit of play. Then we have Temple of Sinnoh. It doesn't really matter that much. The special energies that are rotating, like the good ones, are all rotating, but still, that's the thing. Then we have Arceus V-Star. Arceus V-Star is a support Pokemon, also an attacker. It's better as a support Pokemon than an attacker, but it's kind of outclassed by Force Seal Stone. It's objectively stronger, but it's on essentially a stage one. V-Stars are technically not stage ones, but they're essentially the stage ones. And so that's a bit of a pretty serious downside. It's played sometimes. It's usable, not really played very much, but it's fine. It feels kind of weird to not talk about it if I didn't include it. Then we have some control options. Misfortune Sisters is a male card. It's playing control. And then you have Team Yellowsteer and Silene. They're good cards, I guess. Silene I could see that in good. I mean they're decent, but I just have them grouped in here. Then we got some very niche cards. I think Galay's underrated. Gelato. I've said a bunch of that stuff about special energy. It's getting much worse. Serena, Choi underrated supporter. Probably shouldn't be here, but I think it's all right. And we have Worker. These are very niche supporters, but they have a place to be played in the game. You have Darkrai V-Star. Regidrago V-Star is like probably just as strong as the support Pokemon is Darkrai, so I could have included that on this tier list, and Oranguru V as well. These are fine. They're pretty situational. Oranguru V is actually, if it's played, it has a niche within the game, within, Cloth with trap, things like that. Cloth Trap goes decks built similarly to that. But yeah, there's a bunch of cards that you could probably toss in the very niche tier. But still, these are the main supporters. These ones at the top, as well as Pokestop. I forgot that. Hopefully, I didn't forget anything. If I did, tell me down below in the comments, and I'll pin it. Because I need to. Yeah, I want to make sure I talk about all the cards. And then we have all the meaningful ones. Then we have like the quote attacking Pokemon. The top ones doesn't attack, but it's Snorlax and Regidrago V-Star, two top decks. Regidrago V-Star obviously was like insane, or kind of still is insane. It's very strong right now. Obviously, it's pretty bad for a while. Snorlax is a card that people don't talk about, and they also do talk about. It's a weird card. It's got its own tier, but it's kind of in the same tier as Regidrago as well. Obviously, like the control deck, since it's been in format, it's one of the most prominent control decks that I can think of ever, because it's relatively easy to play and highly played by different people. But anyways, that's fine. Obviously, very good cards, and same thing with the strong tier here. We got Sableye as a lost attacker. Cramorant's in the good tier. The good tier here. Oh, sorry if there's any background noise as well. But yeah, Sableye and Cramorant are good. The Sableye's better than Cramorant, in my opinion, though they're kind of different. And so they're part of a deck as well, the Lost Zone deck, which I had as a top deck. I don't really know, it's really hard to separate out, this is the really good part about this deck. And the deck's fallen off some, but anyways. I think a big part is Mirage Gate, and then, of course, the General Engine. But anyways, Lost Zone, good. And Rotating, one of the four decks I have here. I guess I have some others. I have some, these down the board are mostly their own decks, or some of them are their own decks. Raiding Vintage is an attacking option, probably in Lost Zone as well. Then Radiant Charizard. Radiant Charizard is a really good attacker as well. It's like decent. It's definitely the one that's closest to Radiant Greninja. I don't know if Radiant Charizard is closer to Radiant Greninja or to the third place Radiant, which actually down below, tell me what you think the third place Radiant is. I would say it's Radiant Alakazam. I could be forgetting something, and you could say there's one that's better as well. I completely understand that. But anyways, those are all the Radiants I have on this list as well. But Radiant Charizard's good. It's strong. Blood Mirror Saluna EX, in my opinion, is better. They're different. Notably, Blood Mirror Saluna EX is a two prizer. It's obviously an EX. And Radiant Charizard is your Radiant, but I don't think that actually matters that much from what I've seen within deck building. Then we have some control options. These control options are pretty strong. You have the Mawile, the Bouffalant, Luxray, V, which can use Forest Seal Stone, and then also the Regieleki. The Regieleki actually is like there's the Dedenne and there's a kind of they're very similar. They have the same attack, the same first attack, and so that's something to consider here. I guess if you're looking for replacements, Luxray V as a replacement, I guess with Luxray EX and Mawile traps. It's for free, but or it's not free. It doesn't do damage, which you want. What's for Master Pontiacs does do damage, doesn't with double turbo, but double turbo is also rotating. It's not really a way to trap and not do damage. There technically is there are some like weird, really specific ways, or really like clunky ways. One of them's like a stage 2 fossil. So those aren't great options. You're losing most of these true trapping options, which is a thing. I was gonna say like I kind of I'm gonna miss them. I don't know if I will. I bet most of you probably won't, but yeah, control is losing some pieces. A lot of these cards you can't really replace. Like let's say Last Replacement, Dragapult EX. I don't know, that doesn't like really make a lot of sense if I said something like that. Richard Draco, like Dragapult EX, I guess also is the replacement because that's the main attacking option there. But again, these like attacking option replacements don't make sense for most of these cards. I guess Cramorant's replacement could be Hops Cramorant. They're not super similar, but they have some similarities. Free attack similar, or theoretically free attack. Somewhat similar attack damage outputs. Anyways, so that I mentioned earlier. You have Weird V, mostly played in Lugia, but played in some other stuff. It's fine. It's pretty in Lugia. Raikou V is an attack option. So it's Raichu V. Big piece in Miraidon. Miraidon is a deck that I think is okay. It's pretty mediocre in my opinion, kind of outclassed by some other big basic decks. You're kind of relying on getting my opinion, a little lucky off of Electric Generator. I don't find myself doing that. Maybe I'm just bad, or maybe I'm just unlucky, or some combination of those. But anyways, I don't play that much Miraidon. But Miraidon is definitely, fading out of the game some, losing some important pieces, and not like super strong right now, in my opinion, as I said, either. It's played a decent amount, I guess. Unlike online, I don't think I see it like that much. It's like this is play Limitless. I suppose it's the fifth most played deck. I definitely see Charizard more than it. I definitely see Goldango. I mean, I see lots of decks more than that. But anyways, Miraidon just is going. It's not necessarily going away. You can still play it, but you are losing the Pokemon V and the Force Seal Stone, which is really important. Then I have a bunch of V stars here. I have Palkia, which is a good attacker. I kind of have like the ability grouped in here as well. And so that's it's good. It's played. It's not the most interesting, but it's fine. And then you have Origin Form Dialga Vista. This one's really interesting. I guess it's like one of the weirdest attackers. It's not one. I don't know if I'd say it's one of the weirdest, but it's pretty unique. You get the extra turn and stuff. It's pretty strong. Played in Arcaludon. Arcaludon's certainly fine post rotation. You could play Hops stuff. There's actually a bunch of different Hops things going on there. You could do the Hops double, or you could be doing the Hops Zashi in the X. There's a regular Zashi in the X. There's a bunch of different things. So not be too worried about that if you are an Arcaludon player. And then, though if you're a Dialga player, then yes, but you can't play it. And then Giratina V-Star, it's played in Lost Zone, it's played in Regidrago, can be played in Arceus. Arceus isn't super good, it's in the bottom tier here. But yeah, the Giratina V-Star card is a pretty strong card. It was really good, and it's kind of fallen off, so it's fine. Then Hisuian Guju V-Star is not really played that much separately at all. I've certainly seen it some, but it's played within Regidrago some, though less than Giratina V-Star, from what I've seen, and it's fine. Giratina V-Star, or no, within Regidrago V-Star, sorry. Regidrago V-Star is rotating as well, so saying that these cards are rotating because they're played in that deck, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but anyways. Then we have Snorlax, which is a card played, the other Snorlax, the one that does 180 for 3, which is played in some different things. And like Lugia, and I've seen it in Lost Zone, where it's okay there. It's an underrated attacker. It's not very splashy, but it's fine. Reading Ninja is an attacking option in like Chimpao, Palkia Dex, and Lost Zone, and it's fine. I mean, its ability is amazing. Its attack's pretty decent as well. NTV, same as Raikou V. It's played within Magma. Oh, I didn't include Magma Basin. I don't think Magma Basin's super meaningful. It's a really good card, to be honest, but like Fire's just not super good. But NTV is decent. I also have Delphox V as well. Delphox V, I probably actually shouldn't have included. There's some better cards than it that maybe should have gotten over it, but still. You have some Fire stuff. Fire's weird. You got Armarouge. You could play without Armarouge. NTV is like solid. It can be played in basic toolbox decks, but basic toolbox is actually going to be really good post rotation. Definitely better than they are now. Well, I guess it depends what you group into that category. But if it's just like a knocked out toolbox deck or something like that, that's going to be really good. Widowlow's Clefairy EX, which is like kind of a replacement for NTV and Raikou V. It's not the same, but the attack is essentially the same. And then you have a Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, which is another V-Star. It's actually not that good, but it's played some, and it's cool. I figured I'd mention it. And Hisuian Electrode V. Hisuian Electrode V is played within Cloth, and it's fine there. It's like an okay counter to Charizard EX. It's not a great counter to Charizard EX, because you need like a bunch of stuff. If you actually didn't know, there's the card Spicy Seasoning Curry, which already rotated. Rotation is actually much simpler this year than in other years, because there's like a Japanese like set cycle or like printing. It's weird. It's you're not going to overcomplicate it here, but it was more complicated in the past. And it will be more complicated next year as well, probably. But Ditto is another card, copying attack. It's a really cool card. I was gonna say infamously, but I don't know if this is actually true, or if people actually know this, but it was like broken a bunch of times in Pokemon TCG Live, like repeatedly and very badly. So, anyways, that's a cool card though. Hisuian Zoroark V, not the V Star. I'm not counting it as the previous evolution, but as a free attacker that can do some stuff. It's kind of cool in Cloth. Terrapagos, it's actually pretty cool there. You can get some value out of Pekka and Bite Emoji at the same time without needing Dark Energy, which is pretty cool. And not needing any energy at all. It's not like the flashiest attacker at all. It barely does damage, but yeah, I've seen it used. I don't even know if I played with it within that deck, but it's cool. And then you have Arceus V-Star, which is pretty good. Or it was really good. It's not great now, so it kind of averages out to this very niche, being weighted much more now, but still, it's just a card I wanted to mention here. And there are a lot of cards rotating. Oh, I closed it. If you want to see if you want to see cards with regulation mark F, I use Limitless, so you can search. That's not going to work. Is this going to work? Oh, it did work. Okay, so you can just search regulation F and then show one, or unique cards, then, show all in my taskbar or search bar, whatever that's called. And then you go ahead and you can see all the cards. Again, not all these are rotating. I couldn't find a way to show only ones that are rotating. Tell me down below actually if there's a way to see that. I have not seen like an official list of all the cards. I mean, you know what they are. They're the ones, all of these that aren't reprinted, like Crushing Hammer, Energy Surge, Energy Switch, Energy Retrieval. I'm pretty sure all these are reprinted. I mean, Digging Dew is not reprinted. Some of these aren't. But most of these are, like Great Ball, Pokeball, Pokemon Catcher, Potion Mary Candy, Switch, Ultra Ball. Yeah, and then the ones I said before, Professor's Research, Boss's Orders might be in this list, so that's reprinted. There's some other like semi-meaningful trainers here. Again, there are some cool cards that I didn't talk about, but I think I covered all the important ones. Yeah, tell me down below in the comments though if there are any that I missed that are important, some that you think are a little less important that are still fun. Something like say like Wind Up Arm. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But it is rotating apparently. Riley also pretty bad, but is still rotating. There's some I don't know. There's lots of weird cards. Again, I don't know how I forgot Pokestop, but somehow I missed that one. But tell me down below in the comments if you have any other ideas for videos as well. I'm always appreciative of that. But I hope you enjoyed. As I said, consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all the good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.